I planted a small bed of perennials 3 years ago, spent maybe 2 hours on it. Then I got busy, ignored the whole corner, and genuinely forgot about it. This spring, I walked past and stopped dead. The bed was full, dense, healthy, producing. It had done all of that without me. While I was out buying annuals every April, replanting the same beds, spending money I did not need to spend, this corner was quietly building something I never had to touch again. That is when I understood what perennials actually are. Not just low-maintenance plants, a different philosophy entirely. 20 perennials that reward neglect. One has been growing from the same root since Roman legions carried it across Europe. One is so nutritious that $1 billion industry was built to destroy it. And the number one entry is almost certainly already in your yard right now. If that sounds like your kind of garden, subscribe before we start. Let's count them down. Number 20, lemon balm, the mint that never asks for anything. Most people plant this once by accident and spend the next decade grateful they did. Lemon balm spreads. It returns. It does not care whether you water it or forget it exists. That is not a flaw. That is the entire point. Benedictine monks in 11th century southern Germany built their apothecary gardens around this plant. Paracelsus, the Swiss physician, wrote in the 1500s that lemon balm would make a man immortal if he drank it daily. Greek beekeepers planted it around hives to keep bees from leaving. 3 completely separate traditions. Same plant, same conclusion. Modern trials at the University of Maryland confirmed what the monks already knew. Rosmarinic acid, measurable reduction in anxiety, and improved sleep quality. The chemistry caught up to the practice by about 900 years. Grow it in a pot if you want to contain it, or let it go and harvest armfuls for tea all summer. The supplement industry bottled the extract and sold it back to you. That killed the habit of growing it. Some plants just keep offering, whether you are paying attention or not. Number 19, yarrow, the plant that kept armies moving. Achilles used this plant. That is not legend dressed up as history. It is in the name. Achillea millefolium, named directly after him because of what Greek soldiers did with it on the battlefield. They packed yarrow into open wounds to stop bleeding. 5th century BC, Greek armies moving across the ancient world carried it in their field kits. Cherokee healers in North America used the same plant for the same purpose. No contact between these cultures. No shared knowledge. The same conclusion reached independently on opposite sides of the world. That level of convergence does not happen by accident. The compound responsible is called achillene. It measurably accelerates blood clotting. The soldiers had the right plant for the right reason without knowing the chemistry. Modern science just filled in the explanation. In your garden, it does something quieter. Drought tolerant. Spreads slowly by rhizome. Cut it back after flowering, and it returns denser the following year. Plant it at the edge of vegetable beds, and it draws in predatory wasps that eat the pests you are fighting everywhere else. Plant it once, leave it alone. It has been handling harder situations than your garden bed for 2,500 years. Number 18, oregano, the herb that gets stronger when you ignore it. Here is something the grocery store dried oregano will never tell you. The flavor compounds in oregano are most concentrated when the plant is stressed. Poor soil, dry conditions, full sun, and zero coddling. The worse you treat it, the better it tastes. Ancient Greeks believed Aphrodite created oregano as a symbol of happiness. That is the mythology. The practical history is less romantic and more useful. The Roman army carried oregano across the empire as a meat preservative before refrigeration existed. It spread to every territory they occupied. It is still there. Hippocrates documented it as an antiseptic around 400 BC. The compounds responsible are carvacrol and thymol, both proven antimicrobial in modern research, both more potent in plants grown hard. This is a perennial that genuinely rewards neglect, not as a consolation, as a biological response to adversity. Fresh supermarket herbs killed the habit of growing this at home. A small pot in a sunny window replaced it with something that tastes like cardboard by comparison. If you have a dry, poor corner of the garden that nothing else wants, oregano does not just tolerate that. It thrives there. The plant that tastes like an argument for leaving things alone. Number 17. Echinacea, the prairie doctor. Before there were doctors on the Great Plains, there was this plant. Blackfoot, Comanche, and Lakota communities used echinacea root for infections, toothache, and snake bites, independently. No shared trade route, no common language, the same plant, the same uses, across an entire continent. Lewis and Clark documented it in 1804. They were not discovering anything. They were writing down what had been known for centuries. By 1900, echinacea was the best-selling herbal remedy in the United States. Then, pharmaceutical antibiotics arrived in the 1940s, and the market collapsed almost overnight. Not because the plant stopped working, because something more profitable replaced it. Modern research confirmed what Plains communities already knew. Polysaccharides in the root stimulate immune response. Multiple clinical trials, peer-reviewed. The plant was right the whole time. It comes back every year from a deep taproot. Stunning purple flowers that attract every pollinator in your garden. Spreads by seed if you let the heads stand through winter. Let the seed heads stand through winter. Birds eat them. What falls to the ground plants itself. Harvest the root in autumn of year 3 for tinctures and teas. Or just leave it and let it do its job as a pollinator magnet. Some knowledge gets buried not because it was wrong, but because it stopped being profitable. That is worth sitting with. Number 16. Chives, the perennial nobody count. If you have ever grown chives and then moved house, there is a real chance they are still there, coming back every spring, for whoever lives there now. That is the thing about chives. They do not need you to remember them. Chinese cultivation records go back 5,000 years. Marco Polo mentioned them in his accounts of Chinese markets. They arrived in European monastery gardens in the medieval period and spread so quietly through kitchen gardens across England that by the 16th century, nobody was recording who planted them anymore. They were simply present. That invisibility is the point. Chives do not demand anything. They emerge in early spring before most things have woken up. They flower purple and beautiful in early summer, and every pollinator in the area notices. They deter aphids from neighboring plants without being asked, divide them every few years, and give half away. They will be back regardless. I have a clump that has been in the same raised bed for 4 years. I have never fed it, never watered it beyond rainfall. It is the most reliable thing in the entire garden. The best perennials are the ones you stop thinking about. Number 15. Lovid the giant. Nobody grows 2 meters tall. Tastes exactly like celery, but 3 times stronger. Comes back every year from the same crown. And almost no one in a home garden is growing it. That gap makes no sense until you follow the money. Lovage was standard in European kitchen gardens for centuries. German monastery records from the 12th century list it alongside parsley and sage as a basic culinary herb. It spread across northern Europe as a reliable flavoring for broths, stews, and salted meats. Entirely practical, entirely established. Then commercial celery took over in the 19th century. Celery could be grown at scale, cured, shipped, and sold. Lovage could not fit that model. So seed catalogs quietly dropped it. Supermarkets never stocked it. Home gardeners followed the supply chain and forgot lovage existed. The plant contains the same anti-inflammatory phthalates as celery in higher concentrations. It grows in almost any soil. It tolerates partial shade. From year 2 onward, it requires nothing except a harvest. Think of it as everything celery promised and forgot to deliver. Abandoned because it could not fit inside a shipping crate. Some things disappear, not because they failed us, but because we built systems that had no room for them. Number 14. Horseradish, the root that refuses to leave. Horseradish does not need a gardener. It needs a decision to stop pulling it up. Plant it once and you have made a permanent arrangement. It will be there next year, and the year after, and the year after that. Most gardeners treat this as a warning. It is actually the entire value proposition. Horseradish appears in ancient Egyptian records. It has been part of Passover ritual foods for over 2,000 years. The Talmud lists it as one of the 5 bitter herbs. European folk medicine used it continuously through the medieval period for chest infections, joint pain, and digestion. The first commercial cultivation in the United States began in the 1850s in Collinsville, Illinois. That region still produces 60% of the world's supply. The compound responsible for its heat is allyl isothiocyanate. Destroys bacteria on contact. Folk healers applying it as a chest poultice for respiratory infections were doing something chemically coherent. They just did not have the vocabulary for it yet. It repels Colorado potato beetle. Divide the roots and give them away. They will come back regardless. Think of it as the plant that outlasted every gardener who ever tried to remove it. Some stubbornness is just another word for resilient. Number 13, comfrey, the healer. They tried to cancel. The United Kingdom restricted comfrey from internal use in 2001. Headlines followed. Reputation damaged. Most gardeners quietly stopped growing it. The plant did not change. Only the paperwork did. Monks at Glastonbury Abbey in Somerset cultivated comfrey from at least the 12th century. The common name was knitbone, not a poetic flourish. A clinical observation recorded by people who used it on broken limbs and watched what happened. Nicholas Culpeper documented it in his herbal in the 1600s as a treatment for fractures and wounds. The active compound is allantoin. It promotes cell proliferation. Topical application, accelerating wound and bone healing, has been confirmed in modern research. The risk is real too. Pyrrolizidine alkaloids in the root make internal use genuinely problematic. The plant is complex. The nuance got lost in the controversy. In a garden, it is something else entirely. A dynamic accumulator. Deep roots mine subsoil nutrients and deposit them into leaves that break down as mulch. Chop and drop every few weeks. Free fertility. Zero inputs. Think of it as the plant punished for how some people misused it. The most useful things often carry the most complicated histories. Number 12, Jerusalem artichoke, the calorie machine under your feet. One plant, one season. Enough food calories to carry a family through a difficult winter. That is not a dramatic claim. That is basic yield data from a crop most gardeners have never tried. Champlain documented Jerusalem artichokes growing at Cape Cod in 1605. The Abenaki people had been cultivating them for generations before he arrived. By 1621, the Pilgrims were eating them. The plant crossed the Atlantic, reached France, and was fashionable enough to be served at Versailles under Louis XIV. Then the potato arrived and knocked everything else sideways. Here is what makes Jerusalem artichokes different. They store inulin, not starch. That means they feed gut bacteria rather than spiking blood sugar. Significant benefit for anyone managing diabetes or digestive health. There is one honest warning. Eat too many at once, and you will have a very uncomfortable afternoon. Start with a small portion. Your gut needs time to adjust. Plant the tubers in spring. Do almost nothing. Harvest in autumn. They multiply aggressively. In good soil, they become a permanent productive layer that requires zero annual replanting. If you are not subscribed yet, do it now. There are 7 more plants on this list that will change how you see your garden entirely. Think of it as the crop the New World offered Europe, and Europe mostly forgot to keep. Some gifts take generations to fully appreciate. Number 11, asparagus, the 20-year investment plant. It correctly once, and you will still be eating from it 2 decades later. That is not a selling point. That is a lifestyle decision. The oldest documented asparagus bed, still in production in the United States, is over 40 years old. Same crown, same spot, still producing every spring without being replanted. Cato the Elder wrote about asparagus cultivation in De Agricultura around 160 BC. Spacing, planting depth, harvest windows. The instructions are specific enough to follow today. The Emperor Augustus had a standing phrase for urgent tasks. Faster than you can cook asparagus. It became a Roman idiom. That is how embedded this plant was in daily life. The first 2 years, you do nothing except let it establish. No harvest, just patience. From year 3 onward, the crown produces spears every spring from stored energy. The longer you leave the crown undisturbed, the more it produces. Modern gardening culture trained people to expect immediate return. Asparagus operates on a completely different timeline. This is your mid-list reminder. If this video is changing how you think about your garden, subscribe now and turn on notifications. The top 10 are where it gets genuinely surprising. Think of it as the garden bed that rewards you for thinking past this season. Some investments only make sense when you stop counting in single years. Number 10. Rhubarb, the pie plant, with an opium history. In 1587, rhubarb root was priced higher in the Venice apothecary trade than cinnamon, saffron, and opium. Not the stalks, the root, the part we stopped using entirely. Chinese medicine had been using rhubarb root for digestive and liver conditions for over 4,000 years before it reached Europe. The Silk Road carried dried root westward. European merchants paid extraordinary prices for it because it worked, and nothing else did the same job. The stalks that eventually became pies and crumbles were the agricultural byproduct of European attempts to grow the medicinal root closer to home. The part they valued became unavailable. The part they threw away became dessert. In a garden, rhubarb crowns live for a decade or longer, edible from year 2 onward. Divide and share the crowns every few years. The leaves are toxic to aphids and self-mulch the plant naturally. Zero pest pressure. It tolerates poor soil. It tolerates cold. It comes back every spring without any input from you. Think of it as the plant whose most valuable part we forgot and whose throwaway part we turned into pie. What else have we discarded without noticing what we were losing? Number 9. Turkish rocket, the brassica that grows in rubble. This plant grows in gravel, in rubble, in the kind of dry, neglected corner where nothing else survives, and almost no Western gardener has heard of it. Bunias orientalis, grown across Turkey, the Caucasus, and Central Asia for at least 1,000 years. Ottoman court botanists documented it. European explorers carried seeds home in the 18th century, and it naturalized across Scandinavia and parts of Britain. Then, formal horticulture spotted it spreading through disturbed ground and called it a weed. That was enough to end its reputation in the West. The leaves are high in glucosinolates, the same compounds responsible for the cancer-protective properties associated with broccoli and kale, present in higher concentrations than most cultivated brassicas. The plant delivers this from rubble and dry soil with zero intervention. Leaves, flowers, and young seed pods are all edible. It regrows after cutting from a deep perennial taproot. It handles drought without complaint. It asks for essentially nothing. No commercial grower ever standardized it. No grocery chain created demand for it. No seed company invested in marketing it. So it disappeared from kitchen gardens, not because it failed anyone, but because no one figured out how to profit from it. Think of it as the brassica that never got a publicist. The most dependable plants are often the ones the industry never found a way to sell you. Number 8. Good King Henry, the spinach that never asked for credit. This plant fed working families across England for 400 years. Then the 1950s arrived and it nearly vanished from every seed catalog in the country. Nothing went wrong with the plant. The freezer aisle just made it easier to stop paying attention. Good King Henry appears in John Gerard's Herbal of 1597. It was already so common in English cottage gardens by that point that Gerard wrote about it almost as a formality. Present in working-class kitchen gardens from the medieval period straight through to the Second World War. A staple, reliable, unglamorous in the best possible way. It tolerates shade. It tolerates poor soil. Leaves emerge in early spring before almost anything else is moving. Edible leaves, young shoots, and flower buds. Harvest before full leaf development for the mildest flavor. From year 2 onward, it requires nothing except picking. Frozen spinach and canned vegetables made fresh greens available year-round without a garden. That convenience was real, but something got lost in the trade. Think of it as the vegetable that fed working families for 4 centuries and got replaced by something that needed a freezer. The quietest plants are often the ones that served the longest. Number 7. Society garlic, the garlic that minds its manners. It blooms purple all summer. Every part of it is edible. It repels mosquitoes from the surrounding area. And it produces none of the breath odor that makes true garlic a social calculation. The name is not a compliment. It is a joke that stuck. Victorian botanists named it society garlic because it could be eaten before social engagements without consequence. The name carried and the plant did not get a more dignified one. It originated in South Africa, where it has been used as a garlic substitute in cooking across sub-Saharan traditions for generations. Flavor without the aftermath. In a garden, it spreads steadily by rhizome. Perennial from zone 7 upward. Full sun to partial shade. drought-tolerant once established, deer-resistant, companion planted near roses and vegetables. It reduces aphid pressure without any intervention from you. The ornamental garden industry noticed the purple flowers and filed it under decorative. The culinary value got quietly ignored. Most gardeners growing it do not realize they could be eating it. Some of the most useful things in a garden are hiding behind a prettier reputation. Number 6. Sorrel, the salad leaf that survived. Everything except convenience. Before lettuce dominated the salad bowl, sorrel was there. Tart, lemony, vitamin dense. Emerging in late winter, before almost anything else in the garden was awake. For centuries, it was the green that carried households through the hungry gap between stored winter food and the first spring harvests. French monastery records document sorrel cultivation from the 13th century. Chaucer mentioned it. Elizabeth I's court kitchen accounts from the 1570s include it as a standard ingredient. The French never stopped. Sorrel remains a kitchen garden fixture in Brittany and Normandy to this day. The English and Americans largely walked away from it in the 20th century. No dramatic reason, just the slow drift toward whatever the supermarket made easiest. I grew sorrel for the first time 3 years ago, expecting something difficult. It came back the following spring without any help, bigger than the year before. The leaves were ready in February when nothing else in the garden was moving. I made soup with them and could not believe something that easy had been sitting outside the mainstream for decades. Wilts into soups and sauces like spinach. Raw in salads, it is bright and sharp. Think of it as the salad leaf pushed aside the moment something blander became easier to ship. The plants that ask the least are often the ones worth keeping closest. Number 5. Walking onion, the onion that plants itself. This onion does not wait for you, it plants itself. Top sets grow at the tip of the stalk. They get heavy. The stalk bends to the ground. The top sets root where they land and start again. No gardener required, no replanting, no decision to make. The plant handles the whole thing without you. Allium proliferum, cultivated in ancient Egypt, present in Roman kitchen gardens, documented in European monastery records through the medieval period. Sometimes called the tree onion or the Egyptian onion. The walking habit was not considered strange. It was considered practical. A self-propagating food source that expanded its own footprint every season. Commercial onion production standardized around bulb onions that could be cured, stored, and shipped at scale. The walking onion's greatest strength in a home garden made it commercially unmanageable, so it disappeared from catalogs. Home gardeners followed the supply and forgot it existed. One plant gives you 3 distinct harvests: top sets as pearl onions, stalks as scallions, base bulbs as shallots, from a single original planting that you never have to repeat. Think of it as the vegetable that understood what it needed and went to get it without asking. Some plants never needed us as much as we thought they did. Number 4, stinging nettle, the most nutritious weed you keep pulling out. I want to tell you something that genuinely stopped me when I first read it. Ounce for ounce, stinging nettle contains more iron than spinach, more protein than most cultivated garden vegetables, and more vitamin C than oranges. It grows wild in almost every temperate garden on the planet, and most gardeners spend April and May pulling it out by the root. That is not a gardening mistake. That is a knowledge gap created by a reputation. Norse mythology references nettle as a sacred plant. Tudor England ate nettle soup through March when nothing else was available. During both World Wars, the British government ran official campaigns encouraging nettle harvest to supplement rationed food supplies. Wartime posters, government pamphlets. The plant was considered a serious food resource. The sting is formic acid, carried in hollow silica needles. Cooking or drying disables it completely. The plant is only dangerous raw and unhandled. It is a dynamic accumulator, a companion plant proven in trials to increase essential oil production in neighboring herbs. It feeds the garden while feeding you. The reason it disappeared from intentional cultivation is simple. You cannot sell something people can pick for free from any ditch. Think of it as the plant that defends itself with the same compound it uses to protect you. We were never taught to see it. That is not the same as it having nothing to offer. Number 3. Sea kale, the forgotten delicacy of the English coast. In the 1800s, sea kale was on the menu at every serious London restaurant. A seasonal delicacy, expensive, sought after, grown under terracotta blanching pots on English kitchen garden estates to produce pale, sweet shoots in late winter. By 1950, it had nearly vanished from British cultivation entirely. William Curtis documented sea kale formally in 1799 and sparked a cultivation fashion among English gardeners. It appeared in Jane Austen's household accounts. Aristocratic kitchen gardens grew it as a matter of course. The blanched shoots taste like asparagus, crossed with a mild, sweet cabbage. Crambe maritima, a coastal British native with a deep taproot that makes it virtually drought-proof once established. Perennial for decades from a single planting. Force it in early spring by covering the emerging crown with an upturned pot. Harvest the pale etiolated shoots. Leave the plant to recover for the rest of the season. The Victorian fashion for it passed, and there was no commercial infrastructure to hold it in place. No one profited from keeping it alive, so it quietly disappeared. Think of it as the vegetable the English had, got briefly obsessed with, and then forgot entirely because fashions moved on. The most fragile things in food culture are not the delicate plants. They are the habits that kept them alive. Number 2. Ground elder. The plant you have been fighting without knowing what it was offering. Every gardening article about ground elder tells you the same thing. How to kill it. Smother it. Dig it out. Exhaust it over several seasons of persistent removal. Not one of them mentions that medieval monks planted it deliberately. Cistercian monks at Rievaulx Abbey in 12th century Yorkshire cultivated ground elder as a fasting food through Lent. The name bishop's weed came from its documented use treating gout, a disease so common among wealthy clergy that it had a plant named for its remedy. Culpeper praised it. The Romans brought it to Britain as a pot herb before the monasteries existed. 2,000 years of continuous cultivation history, replaced almost entirely by herbicide advice. Harvest young leaves before the plant flowers. Blanch in butter. Treat exactly like spinach. Rich in vitamin C and iron. The flavor is mild and green and completely respectable. It is almost certainly already in your garden. You have probably been removing it every spring without ever asking what it was. Think of it as the plant you have been fighting without ever knowing what it was offering. Sometimes, the most useful thing in your garden is the one you were taught to destroy. Number 1. Dandelion. The plant a billion-dollar industry was built to destroy. Stop before we get into this one, because this changes everything you thought you knew. Dandelion is not a native weed. European settlers brought it to North America deliberately in the 1600s. As a food crop, as a medicine, every part edible, every part useful. They carried it across an ocean because they could not imagine a kitchen garden without it. The first recorded American recipe using dandelion greens dates to 1790. The Iroquois were using it medicinally within a generation of European contact. It was a kitchen garden staple on 2 continents simultaneously. Then the post-war lawn happened. Uniform green grass became the suburban ideal. Scots and the chemical lawn care industry built an entire product category around eliminating broadleaf plants. Broadleaf meant dandelion. The campaigns worked. Within a generation, a food crop became a weed by marketing decision alone. Here's what that decision cost you. Dandelion leaves contain more beta-carotene than carrots, more calcium than milk, more iron than spinach. The root contains inulin, the same prebiotic fiber as Jerusalem artichoke. Published nutritional analyses, not folk claims. I stood in my own yard last spring, looking at a dandelion I was about to pull, and I stopped. Because I realized the instinct to remove it was not knowledge. It was inherited advertising. The word weed has no botanical meaning. It is a social category. A plant someone decided was inconvenient. This one was inconvenient to an industry, not to you. If this video changed how you see your garden, subscribe now. Share it with someone who still pulls these out every spring. There is more coming, and it only gets deeper from here. 20 perennials, One decision. No replanting required. You did not forget these plants. You were never taught them. Seed catalogs